Welcome to an emergency episode of the Illegally Use Hands to the Face Football Podcast. We are doing a schedule reaction here. Excited, Jake?
Oh yeah, very much, very much.
Yeah, me too. Let's start with some Thursday Night Football because those are important games. We already talked about Week 1 in the Bengals episode, but I think we've got a pretty good idea. These Week 2, Week 3, and Week 4, these Thursday night games are the teams that we wanted to see early in the season. Teams that we don't think will be as successful later in the season, but we still think should have some primetime games, so they get early season primetime games. What do you think?
Yeah, the NFL prioritizing these worst teams, getting their primetime games out of the way early is genius, and they should do it more. Like if you see the Texans and you know these guys aren't going to be good, but if you get it out of the way before they're 0-8 and they're almost eliminated from playoff contention, then yeah, it's going to make the game more interesting because you have no idea who's going to be under center for that team. You know, Tyrod, Ryan Finley, Davis Mills, whoever it is going to be very interesting to watch take on. Who are they taking on for Thursday night?
They got Carolina.
Carolina. Yes, Carolina. Taking on Carolina there. Sam Darnold's still trying to prove himself away from gangrene. That's going to be a fun game to watch, and I don't know if I'd be able to say the same thing if that was a Week 15 primetime Thursday night game. I'd probably fall asleep watching that.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. Then we've also got Jacksonville, Cincinnati, two teams that we don't necessarily think will be completely terrible, but probably won't be a top-tier team or even probably fighting just to be a mid-level team. So having them be Week 4 is another good one. Two exciting young quarterbacks. That'll be a fun matchup for early season. New York Giants and Washington week 2 also. They see they're in the NFC East though, so they could still be in contention late in the season. But I guess if you think Dallas is going to be a lot more competitive this year with their high-powered offense being able to put points on the board, maybe hard to beat them, then I guess you could see a world where somebody could run away with that division, and I guess that's a decent reason to get those games out of the way early. Week 5 is kind of where I start to question things, where I don't know as much how they start randomly assigning games here. But Week 5, we've got a division matchup, and you know I'm never too excited about division matchups. Honestly, we see them every year. I would rather see primetime games with different matchups. This is LA and Seattle, and I don't know. I'm not too excited to watch that one. Could be a good game, but honestly, pretty downtrending on the Seahawks right now and uptrending on the Rams. So that may not be too exciting. The only advantage is that it is in Seattle.
Yeah, division primetime games are fun later in the season when they actually mean something, because you can really get into the game at that point. Like, geez, these two, like, every team's trying to win every game, but it's just these guys are biting and clawing and nailing at every single chance they can get to win, because a game's difference can decide who gets the 4 seed and who's struggling to get in the 7 seed, and especially in the NFC West too, because that's going to be a very competitive division. But that early in the season between the Rams and the Seahawks, where I don't think a game like the Seahawks are probably going to be the odd men out in that division. I think the Cardinals could be better than them. Just it's going to be very odd to see how that plays out. The division as a whole is very competitive, but I think that's a very weird one to put in that spot. I think 49ers Rams would be a good division one to put there if they were going to go that way, put an NFC West division game there. But there's some better matchups that I think could be put in there, especially division games earlier in the season. Like, I'm not a big fan of the Giants football team one Week 2 for Thursday night, but both those teams have the potential to miss the playoffs and not be very good, get their primetime games out of the way early. I can understand that. This one's kind of iffy, though, because these two teams are both going to be fighting for playoff contention way later in the season.
Yeah. Then we get like where the weird stuff starts happening too. Week 5 also begins. We got a 9:30 a.m. London. I didn't know this was a London game. You may have to tell me if this is. I thought there were only going to be 2 London games, and I wasn't thinking this is one of them. We have Jets at Falcons listed as a 9:30 a.m. game. That is a London game?
Yep, that is a London game.
So Atlanta gave up a home game to go to London this year, and I'm sorry, this is only so strange to me because that means that they're going to have 17 games. 9 of them were already on the road. Now you're going to have a 10th that isn't at home. So you're only going to have 7 home games and 10 like places you have to travel to. That doesn't excite me too much as an NFC team.
Yeah, that game as a whole is just like, I mean, early morning football's great. Waking up at like 9 to watch football at 9:30 is just amazing, but I might rather just take the couple hours and if it's gonna be Falcons Jets.
Luckily, it's an early season game though. Again,
oh yeah.
I mean, like I said, these are good to. If we're gonna get slots where teams are nationally televised, meaning like just the idea that there's no other game on at the same time, then yeah, put worse teams in.
Oh yeah, and seeing Zach Wilson go up against a defense like Atlanta's, where there's just holes all over it, and he could probably pick them apart doing willy-nilly stupid stuff. That would be fun to watch, especially for the people across the pond. Be introduced to the Mormon Mahomes and Zach Wilson.
Wow! I had not heard that one. I don't know where you got that, but all right, I can't wait to use that every single day for the rest of my life. Yeah, we'll try to speed it up a little bit for these Thursday night games here. Next week we got Tampa Bay, Philadelphia. I don't know. That's a good one in terms of like it's not a matchup we're gonna see very often, but I don't know if that's gonna be a close game.
Yeah, that just has blowout written all over it. Yeah. I mean, Jalen Hurts did do some stuff in primetime last season, or like 4:30 slots. The one game against the Saints, he was really impressive in that. If he could somehow beat the Buccaneers, that would just be phenomenal.
Yeah, that'd be wild. And it seems like we get the further we get into this Thursday night schedule, the more it looks like I'm seeing a lot of games on here that I have to say I don't know how close these are going to be. There are some interesting ones though. The next one we have to mention is Week 7. The Broncos go to Cleveland. I think Cleveland has that one fairly pretty much handed to them.
Yeah, unless Rodgers finds a way to get to Denver or something, that seems like a tough one too.
Yeah. Now, on the other hand, the Packers play the Cardinals the following week on Thursday night. So, I think this game actually becomes more interesting if Rodgers isn't there. I would think it's more interesting because I would think that the Packers would actually win fairly easily if Rodgers was on the field. But I'm interested if Jordan Love is the quarterback.
Yeah, that would have a great storyline. 2 young QBs going at it. Jordan Love in his like real first season, and Kyler Murray's having to handle the helm of this offense that Cliff Kingsbury doesn't know how to control. So that'd be fun too. That'd be a fun offensive little shootout there.
Yeah. Then we've got one of those games that is purely because of the market of one of the teams, in the New York Jets visiting the Indianapolis Colts once again, purely because the New York Jets are a big market. They are getting this primetime game against the Colts. Sorry, that this this one has a decent number of question marks to it. I'll give it that. I have to say, if we could go forward into the future, and just see where both teams are sitting at Week 9 when this game is scheduled, that would be pretty interesting to see. However, I have a feeling when this game comes around, I don't know how it's going to be the outlook is going to be, but I have a feeling by then I will be less interested in it than I am now, knowing nothing about how these teams are going to look.
Yeah, not really too much to get excited about a Jets team that could be having 2 or 3 wins at that point, and a Colts team that has Carson Wentz quarterbacking it. I mean, the Colts seem like they're going to be a good team. That defense is really good. I mean, it'd be funny to watch Zach Wilson get his pretty boy face pounded in, but just nothing about Carson Wentz really excites me.
Yeah. Then the following week, this is hugely up to Tua's development. This one could be interesting. We have Dolphins hosting Baltimore. That one could be interesting in some regards. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, I mean, when I think of the Ravens going against the Dolphins, I just think of Week 1 a couple of years ago when Lamar just throttled them. But yeah, that could, if Tua develops into a good quarterback and is making games up till that point competitive, and the Dolphins are winning a lot of games, yeah, that's a great matchup. But if Jacoby Brissett has to come in there and be his reliever and win games for him, that's going to be an eyesore.
Yeah, oh boy, that's one that could get ugly. This next one in week 11, Patriots at Falcons. Once again, the one thing I will give it is it's a matchup that we don't see a lot, and it becomes slightly more interesting because it's in Atlanta. Because if this thing is in New England, I don't think it's very close. Still favor the Patriots in this game, but honestly, interested in that one, even though it falls later in the season. I'm just trying to now. Week 12 would be the Thanksgiving games, and do you remember who Dallas plays in the 4:00 window? Because I don't have it pulled up here, but for some reason they're not Thursday. They're not Raiders. Thanksgiving.
Raiders, I think.
Okay, yeah. So Thanksgiving Day, then we start with Bears, Lions, and then Raiders, Cowboys, and then lastly end with Bills, Saints, and that one's in New Orleans, right?
Yes, it is in New Orleans.
Yeah. So though, you got the Lions early. I would like to see the Lions get a matchup that was a little easier for themselves. Also, like I said, I just like to get out of division games because keep playing keep playing in division teams on Thanksgiving. I don't love that. And then Dallas, Las Vegas is a game we do not get to see a lot. Those are two like middle of the road teams, so I like that matchup. And then Saints Bills is good because we're Bills fans, and the Saints are at home. Even though the Saints may have dropped a little bit, I feel like it evens it out, kind of being the home team in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those games just increasingly get better over time. I mean, it's not hard for Thanksgiving games to do that. I mean, usually the middle game is the better one. Because the Lions game, your expectations are set through the basement, just watching that. And them playing the Bears is just going to be... I hope the Lions make it competitive, because it'd be a lot of fun. But even Stafford's not their quarterback anymore. And I liked watching the Lions play on Thanksgiving because I loved Matthew Stafford. And he's gone now. Yeah. So, I mean... I guess I could bite into some turkey like Dan Campbell bites into kneecaps, but it's just going to be tough watching that game.
You've got a good point there. I mean, missing out on Stafford is kind of tough. And then we're doing this thing again, week 13 for our Thursday night game, which I really get sick of because I don't mind watching a Cowboys game, but I really hate when the Cowboys are on prime time because I see so much of them. Like, give me some variety. But then they do this thing where the Cowboys are guaranteed the next Thursday game after the Thanksgiving game as well, and they play one of the teams that also played on Thanksgiving, so they play the Saints the following week. That'll definitely that one's interesting. I'm not going to give that one too much flack.
Yeah, it's interesting, but just something about two teams that are already in prime time playing prime time the next week, because it's the Bills played that Monday night too, the next Monday night after that, and
we'll get to the Monday night schedule.
But I'm a Bills fan. I don't like that for other fans too, having to endure like watching the same teams back to back in primetime slots. Just kind of like, come on, you can toss something up in there, especially with the Cowboys. The Cowboys get like 8 guaranteed primetime games a year. And it's just that like, especially last season when Andy Dalton's their quarterback or something goes wrong and they just keep those games, makes you want to blow your brains out looking at stuff like that. It's just, why?
Next game's interesting. See, this is one that cross conference. That's exciting. Pittsburgh at Minnesota. I can't even say that I remember this game like ever occurring before. I mean, it obviously had to happen in the past, but like I can't say that I ever remember like a time these two teams met. And these are two teams that I think could have like decently high expectations, but I actually think will slightly underperform. So they both could be like in the thick of things, trying to get like a lower seed in the playoffs. I think this is another decent matchup to go with.
Yeah, Cousins versus Roethlisberger would be great, but it would also be great. Kellen Mond against Dwayne Haskins too. So no matter where those teams are at that point in the season, I think it'd be a good quarterback matchup.
You are not wrong. The only thing that would make that slightly like sadder is if it only got like halfway there. So it was like Cousins was kind of playing like slightly poorly, but Roethlisberger got benched, so it was like Haskins, Cousins instead of like those two young guys. I like to see those young guys. The next week, I will say that I don't always hate the divisional matchups, mostly because this one includes a guy who hasn't been around too long and only got one opportunity to play this other guy so far. For Week 15 Thursday Night Football, we have Kansas City and the LA Chargers. LA's hosting that game, and that's much more interesting to me just because we only got to see last season, the second game when the Chargers played the Chiefs. The Chiefs just were resting starters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we only got to see Justin Herbert play Patrick Mahomes once, and it was his first game of his career. Like, geez, talk about Justin Herbert being ready, especially after 15 weeks into this next season. I think we could see two of the potentially the best quarterbacks in the NFL going at it. And if we want to say that the Chiefs have a little bit of an advantage, it's nice that the Chargers are the home team in this sense. Maybe that helps them out a little bit. Not much because of their crowd, because I don't think we expect much of the Chargers fans, but just not having to go to Kansas City helps them out.
Yeah, that could be a great game. That could just be a great game. Justin Herbert and Mahomes. The division thing that you said. Not a big fan of division games in prime time, but something like that with the storyline that has that you said, that would be a great one.
Yeah. Then the last Thursday night game of the season is San Fran going to Tennessee. That's going to be two what I would expect to be really good running teams, and that's not as appealing to, maybe it's not as appealing to most people, but I mean also both the way those teams can go throw the ball off play action. I like that matchup. I'd be excited to watch that matchup just because it's not extremely old school, but it's two teams that are playing slightly more old school football, and I just like to see how they scheme up against each other. I think that one could be really good, especially because I think San Francisco is going to be a lot better without all the people being injured and gone.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got two quarterbacks, so if one of them gets hurt anyways, then there'll still be a second one to put on the field that'll be competent.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, too. That game could get a whole lot more interesting if Trey Lance was in there at that point of the season, which I don't think will happen. I think they might ride out the whole season with Jimmy G there. But if something happens to him, he can't stay healthy because he's shown he can't. It's later in the season. If Trey Lance gets out there, that would be one to watch.
Yeah, we really haven't touched on this to each other, but I really do think that everything I'm hearing from the Niners at this point, and I kind of agree with it. Most of the time, I wouldn't like taking a quarterback number 3, put him on the field. I agree with it. The only reason they drafted Trey Lance is because Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt. If somehow Jimmy Garoppolo miraculously becomes the most healthy man on the planet, I don't think they're going to hate that they took Trey Lance. The only reason they needed Trey Lance is because their quarterback couldn't stay on the field. Mm-hmm. So either he gets hurt again and Trey Lance comes in, or he doesn't, and hey, they may get back to a Super Bowl or even win it. And for some reason, we're looking down on it because we missed one throw in our career in the Super Bowl and say, well, you're terrible now. I don't think we should look at it like that. He got them to the Super Bowl when he was healthy. I mean, there's something to be said for that. And I just think having an insurance option when your car is unreliable is not a bad thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Jimmy Garoppolo is on the hot seat basically just to make sure if he gets burned while on the hot seat, that's just Trey Lance is coming in then. But if he keeps playing like Jimmy G plays and wins them games and doing what he does, because he wins games, especially if that defense is 100% healthy, you should have no problem winning games. But Trey Lance is just there because I think they are ready to move on from Jimmy G at the drop of a hat as soon as he gets hurt. Because it's like, all right, you've shown us that you can't stay healthy for a whole season, so sorry, bro.
And the NFL is also making my Christmas better because I like Christmas more when I get to watch football. I think I would have preferred if they flipped these games in their time slots, but I'll accept it. I'm interested. We've got Cleveland and Green Bay, who were is a cross-conference matchup, but I think see, Rodgers is the key here. But even if Rodgers isn't there, I'd say Green Bay, with the talent they have around the quarterback position, and just if they get their quarterback to play competently, could at least be a competitive football team basically with anybody. So I don't think there's any way that that's a bad game, but it's a lot more exciting if Aaron Rodgers is on the field in a matchup that we don't get to see a lot. Then we get another cross-conference game for the 8 o'clock Saturday Christmas game, being Indianapolis and Arizona. And that's another one, just like Pittsburgh and Minnesota earlier. I think those could be two teams potentially kind of battling for lower seeds, or more likely, I would say the Cardinals are more likely to be battling for a lower seed in the playoffs. But Indianapolis could even be going for the division still. I mean, there's no doubt that they could definitely be in the competition. I think I'm one of the few people that likes Tennessee more than Indianapolis, but I mean, it could go either way any day of the week.
Well, I mean, people, last season saying the Colts wouldn't even make the playoffs or whatever, right?
No, they were saying that they would be like the best team in the NFL.
Oh,
No,
okay.
it's the exact opposite. Yeah, they were saying the
So
Colts are going to be the best team in the NFL, and then they lost to Jacksonville week 1, and I was like, that didn't last long.
Yeah, I agree with you with having those two games flipped, because, I mean, the Colts Cardinals game seems like the perfect game to have going, like, in the afternoon.
While the family's still over.
Yeah,
Before
when
everybody
the
had
family's
back,
over, you're
headed back
opening
home.
presents and stuff you're eating. That's a good game to have going on in the background. Look over. Oh, Kyler Murray just had a great play. That'd be a great game. But that Browns-Packers game, that's something that you want to, like, sit down and watch. Like, after everything's said and done, you get to relax, veg out a little bit, watch that game.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Okay, so we're on the same page with that. I don't think there's too much disagreement in how the Thursday night games reviewed. I think we can go to Monday night next, but honestly, I'd say pretty happy with Thursday night. Basically, I mean, not. This is kind of how I wanted them to draw Thursday up. I mean, there's obviously some of the things that we mentioned, like the Jets playing the Colts just because they're the Jets. They get extra games. That's kind of lame. But besides that, yeah, I mean, we really pretty much like Thursday night schedule, right?
Yeah, it's not something that we've seen in previous years, where it's just you have a garbage game going on like week 13. And it's just why do you have because Thursday night they just make the schedule. It's like, oh yeah, let's start off real strong. It's like, we gotta get the Texans their primetime game. We could squeeze them in week 13. It's just why you're like ruining momentum. You're gaining momentum throughout the season. And, people fall off the wagon at that point. So you don't give them primetime games when momentum is swinging towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
I like that they didn't do that.
Yeah. Then we got Monday night. I'll say the one thing that sticks out to me immediately that's strange to me is that I thought that so since week 16 is basically now week 17, since we have 18 weeks, we don't have a Thursday night game week 17, but we still have a Monday night game. That's kind of strange to me. I don't know. Not a big deal. Just something I'll point out. Let's start with week 1 though. For Monday Night Football, we got Baltimore headed to Las Vegas. That's a game that's interesting. I think we kind of both agree. This game is probably going to be fairly in favor of Baltimore in terms of the betting line. And then also on top of that, it's probably more so that they got this game because they didn't get to have their opening last year for their stadium on Monday Night Football that they thought they were going to get.
Yeah, they got gypped out of having the draft in Vegas, and then they didn't get to have a packed home opener. So I guess it's a good gesture for the NFL to toss out to them, have that go on. But it's not going to be the most interesting game to watch that they could have put there.
Yeah, we'll just have to hope that the Raiders overperform because I don't. Otherwise, I don't. That game could be a little out of hand. Also, I'm wondering. Every year that I can remember, like since I've been alive that I remember, obviously, so not necessarily true. But I don't remember a season where we didn't have 2 Monday night games week 1. We always had that 7 o'clock game and then the 10. We don't get that this year. We just get 1 Monday night game. It's kind of sad because I'm always excited week 1. Week 1's huge. Maybe it's just because we're getting preseason back and we're still kind of questioning things. But yeah. I guess week 2's Monday night game. I'm surprised by this. Yeah, I thought Detroit's only primetime game was gonna be. I thought Detroit's only primetime game would be their Thanksgiving Day game that they're guaranteed. Sorry, but I just don't know how exciting this team is going to be. And not to mention, they're not giving them a very favorable matchup in the fact that we talked about this. We want to get these bad teams on some primetime games early, so they have some primetime games. Give them a national audience. But really, we're going to put Detroit up against Green Bay. Do we really think we're going to get a great product out of that? What do you think?
Yeah, that just seems like throwing lambs to the slaughter there. It's just, we got to get Detroit one other game besides the Thanksgiving one. Everyone likes watching Aaron Rodgers play, even though he might not be on the Packers next season. So let's just... That game will be a lot more interesting if Jordan Love is the quarterback for the Packers.
I mean, that's the argument for it, is that if Jordan Love is the quarterback, at least the game becomes, like, slightly more competitive.
Yeah.
Week 3 for Monday Night Football, we have the Eagles heading to Dallas, and honestly, I don't even want to say anything about that because we know the only reason that that's there, because 2 huge markets. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, next week, still another divisional game, but kind of fighting to be like the new names and big market teams. Las Vegas and Los Angeles in the Chargers. Just because I have to say which team I'm referring to. So interdivision matchup. Once again, I'm excited to see more Herbert, so that's exciting. But it's in LA, and I could see some stuff happening where the Chargers take that one fairly handedly. So once again, Monday night so far not looking as good as Thursday night, because I think I've had a favorite in all of these games, except maybe Eagles Cowboys. But even then, I'm probably favoring the Cowboys by a pretty decent amount. We're 4 weeks in, and I don't really feel like any of these games are necessarily going to be too competitive.
Yeah, it feels like the NFL schedule makers tried to overcorrect their decisions in the past, where all the Thursday night games were kind of weak, so they beefed them up, and then these Monday night games are like, just kind of... They need to find someone that pays attention to both of them, because it just seems like the attention is either or.
It's really interesting that they decided to put the Raiders on Monday Night Football twice in the first 4 weeks of the season. That seems like if you're gonna put them on primetime, I mean, at least I would think that you would go for I don't know, just a different game. The fact that the Monday night commentators are gonna get to talk about the Raiders twice within the first 4 weeks, I think I would be kind of mad about that if I was just like the guy in the booth for those games. Week 5 starts to get a little more interesting. Oh boy, I'm noticing some of the later games, but I'll wait to get to those. Indianapolis heads to Baltimore. Week 5. This one is one that I like more. This is a more competitive teams. 2 playoff teams last year, both knocked out by the Buffalo Bills, and both actually, even though the Baltimore game kind of got thrown off by that interception to Teron Johnson, I would say fairly even teams, and we didn't see them play last year, correct? They didn't play last year. So this to me is an interesting matchup. In terms of matchup, we don't see a lot, even though it's in conference. Can't say that we see it a lot. I'm just interested to see how these teams stack up together. I mean, they're obviously 2 teams that were fairly good running the football, and yeah.
The Ravens and Colts did play last season. The Ravens beat the Colts 24-10, I believe.
How early in the season was that?
It looks like it was week 8.
Okay, I just forgot.
Week 9.
I'm interested though. This is a primetime slot, so this is definitely be a game I'm tuning into.
Oh yeah, and that Ravens Colts game last season, it was really interesting because the Colts defense is really good. They got a bunch of no names on that D, but that doesn't mean it's not good. They have a really strong defense for a bunch of guys that I don't know the names of. And
It's the weirdest thing ever.
yeah, they shut down the Ravens run game for a long time in that game. It's just Phil Rivers just, needs to throw his interceptions at some point. And I think with Carson Wentz, he's a little bit of a better ball manager or game manager than Phil Rivers is. So that would make the game even closer. That would be a good defensive battle between the two.
Mm-hmm. Week 6, we have Buffalo headed to Tennessee. According to what happened last season, this shouldn't be a good game at all. But I'm going to hope, from my perspective, I think the Bills can do a lot better. And I mean, geez, if you literally just set the edge at all this time around, because that's basically the only thing that the Titans did is strung every single play out, whether it was the quarterback or a running back. That was the only reason we got absolutely killed in that game. On top of that, balls going off receivers' hands like crazy. I'd expect this game to be a lot closer, a lot more competitive. So I like this matchup. I think these are two good, fairly powerful teams in the AFC. So Buffalo, Tennessee for Week 6, I like.
Yeah, that's a really good game as long as the Titans don't get basically 2 weeks worth of bye weeks heading into that. I mean, it'd be a pretty good one, and the Bills know who they're playing. It'd be a great game.
Yeah, no, if the Bills know who they're playing, that will be a big advantage for them. Week 7 is an interesting matchup. Two teams, probably, from my perspective, they feel like they changed a lot. I think Seattle's going to feel like a completely different team next season. And they're playing New Orleans. They're hosting New Orleans. I would be more interested if this one was in the Superdome. I don't like that the Seahawks get the advantage because I think Russ does better at home, honestly. I don't know. That's probably not a big deal. But I mean, it feels like Russell Wilson is kind of like the entire key to the offense, even though they have two like amazing receivers. Just feels like if he's not going, this team isn't going. And I don't know. This one's interesting me, but I feel like the closer it gets, I probably would get less interested in it.
Hey, I think the closer it gets, the more interesting it'd be because the holes for both those teams will be more and more prevalent. So you'll see like at that point of, ooh, is Jameis really the guy for the Saints? And then for the Seahawks,
Whoa, you're just selling out Taysom Hill already?
Well, no, that's the thing. Taysom Hill might be the quarterback going into that game, or my guy Ian Book. The Seahawks, though, the holes for them, because I think the Saints, the only hole that they really have is quarterbacks. So you could see like how big the difference would be. Well, the difference for Brees to Jameis is obviously going to be big, but you'll be able to see the difference by that point in the season. The Seahawks, it'll just be, okay, did this secondary get any better? Probably not, because they lost their one solid corner. Is this line still as suspect as it was last season? The Seahawks will have two very big aspects of their game that will be prevalent of if they are good or not at that point. And the Saints, the only aspect that will be able to operate that offense well, will be shown if it's solid or not.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Either way, that would be great to be like, Jameis is kind of iffy at quarterback, but the Seahawks secondary isn't really that great, so he might be able to tear him up. You don't know.
The thing is that I say this game is slightly questionable. There's no doubt about the next game. The next game is awful. Are you looking at the schedule right now? You're gonna cry when you hear what I say if you're not.
No, I'm not looking at the schedule right now.
The next game for Monday Night Football. Ready for this? This is the worst version of it, which is a big market team that is getting a primetime game because they're a big market team going to play a very good football team that isn't a big market, but they're a good team. Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
New York Giants at Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh my, that's so gross. That is so gross.
Okay, they're getting slaughtered. Moving on.
Jeez.
If they weren't in the, could you imagine that game happening if they weren't an NFC East team located in New York City? Oh my gosh.
Dude, the FCC has to have some rules about like slaughter just happening on live television. That's just wrong. Okay. You could put Chad Henne out for that game.
The funny thing is, They double down and do it again 2 weeks later. Okay, hang on, but we got to get to it. Next game. This one's interesting. Another one with just some question marks in it. We've talked about both these teams a little bit already, so I think I kind of think we know why this game's going to be interesting. But Bears Steelers. So
Yeah.
They get Steelers get another NFC North matchup on prime time. So I think that I'll be interested to watch that one. Please have Justin Fields in by then, though. Please have him in the game by then.
Yeah, that'll be the saving grace for a lot of Bears games being entertaining this season. It's just, can Andy Dalton just be done week 1?
Well,
Please.
I mean, if they're playing the Lions, I'd much rather see Andy Dalton in terms of keeping the game competitive. But I think Justin Fields could go off. I think Justin Fields would destroy the Lions. Then we get one of the. I think you mentioned this game earlier as a game that wasn't on the schedule, but here it is. It's Monday instead of Thursday. L.A. Rams at San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, that is an actual entertaining game that I would love to watch. That game might have potential to be like the Chiefs-Rams game a couple years ago.
Yeah,
that would be insane.
I know what you mean, but I know what you mean in terms of how explosive those offenses both are. But the thing is, at the time of the Chiefs-Rams game, there was a lot less talent on the defensive side of the ball in those games.
Yeah.
Of course, that game was even helped more by the fact that instead of teams punting, they turned the ball over and let them go for touchdowns instead. Samson Ebukam had 2 touchdowns in that game. That game was just wild. But yeah, I mean, we got guys like Nick Bosa, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Fred Warner. I mean, there's just a lot of guys that I feel like would make it difficult for either of these teams to get to 40+. Not saying it couldn't be a high-scoring game in the 30s or something, but threatening those 50-point marks that both those teams put up on that crazy night a few years ago. I'm a little hesitant to say that. If everything went perfectly, maybe. I mean, it has to go perfectly for that type of game to happen. So I guess that isn't ridiculous for me to say. Or ridiculous for you to say, because you have to understand that things have to go perfectly. And honestly, 50 points for both teams, you usually need defensive touchdowns. So you may need defensive talent in those games to actually make both teams get to 50. Maybe you're onto something. I'm just a little less. I'm not as sold on that as you maybe are.
I can understand. I can understand why.
Okay, you ready? This is the game that I was telling you that they just did again. You're not going to believe this. They did the exact same thing. It's not even like the Giants are the home team this time. The Giants are playing on Monday Night Football again. Guess who they got this time? It's really easy. They're going to Tampa.
Why? Why? Oh, do the schedule makers not realize that no one wants to watch Daniel Jones get his face punched in? Oh, that's so pathetic.
This was a primetime game last year that actually was surprisingly good. That was when the Buccaneers were still developing as a team, though. I think when you return all 22 starters for a second season, after you just won the Super Bowl and kind of really hit your stride going into the playoffs, I'm on the same page as you. I don't think this is a good idea. So that's basically the same thing as we already said for that game before. So then here's one that's kind of interesting. Seattle goes to Washington. Kind of 2 teams that are sometimes I don't even know. They're just interesting teams. Seattle's underwhelming on offense. Sometimes they're not always. Sometimes they just decide to go off. But I feel like it would be against the Washington defense that they would have a day where they're underwhelming. Other people don't like it, but I could get really into this game if somebody won it like 10-7.
Oh yeah, that could be a nice defensive battle not from the aspect that the Seahawks defense is really great, even on the level of the football teams, but just the football team's offense is pretty incompetent. I mean, unless they put Heineke out there, then yeah.
Fitzpatrick could have a Fitzpatrick could have a bad day, and we could see that 10-7 matchup that I just described. But if Heineke's in there, I don't think we'll see a defensive battle. I think that turns into at least a 20 points for each team type of game.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be hard for us to cook.
Yeah. So this Seattle game comes right before the Buffalo game, which is next week, and I'm just thinking about right now the fact that we played Seattle last year, and Pete Carroll has the press conference after the game and just goes, "Yeah, I've never played against a team that just refused to run the ball. We thought eventually they had to start running it, and they just didn't do it." I just love that. I'm happy to be a Bills fan when I hear things like that. Like, honestly, just do what's working. Don't sell out of it if you don't need to. If passing is what's working, keep throwing the ball. But I know other people hate that concept, but that's what I'm into. Patriots at Bills. I think the Patriots are going to be a lot better, but Buffalo's the home team. Packed crowd. Brady could handle it. I don't know if Cam Newton's going to be able to come into Buffalo. Cam Newton actually hasn't come into Buffalo in a live game ever and won. So, right? Never?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
So
I don't think he's never come into Buffalo and won. Doesn't matter, live game or anything.
No, I do think there was a preseason game they beat us in.
Oh,
so that's why, yeah. So, yeah. That's why I said live game. But I'm really interested to see how the Patriots look. If they have Mac Jones playing, even more excited. I think they're going to be a lot better. But I still like Buffalo more than I like New England, and I would probably favorite Buffalo even if Buffalo is on the road at New England. So making Buffalo the home team really solidifies this one for me. The one thing to say for it is that I do think that the Bills are... I don't know. I'm sorry. Kind of lost my train of thought there. I think they're better than New England just overall.
Yeah.
And putting them as the home team makes it slightly harder. I mean, all you see the thing about who's the home team for these primetime games, especially when you choose divisional matchups, it's like if you're gonna make it, you can literally just flop the placement of them in the schedule because they play twice. So it's like, if you want to throw the Bills and Pats on Monday Night Football and the Bills were the better team last year, make the Pats the home team, even it out a bit. You can't do it if it's out of division games, but if they're divisional games, like we've got a decent number of divisional games for Monday Night Football. Do you disagree?
Yeah, I could only see the way that they don't do it is because the Bills had a Monday night game at the Pats last season, so they might want to switch up like Bills, Pats, Monday night at Bills. That's the only reason, but I do see where you're coming from, and I think I prefer that way.
Yeah. L.A. Rams at Arizona Cardinals. This is week 14. This is that area where I think we had the Cardinals even in a later season game for Thursday night schedule. And I didn't mention this before, but really getting later into the season, LA could have hit their stride by this point, and Arizona could have started falling off, because that's just how I feel like these two teams are going to go. I could be completely wrong, but there's an element of me that thinks the Cardinals just sometimes turn down at very inopportune times, and I feel like Sean McVay gets a lot out of his players, especially when he has a very competent quarterback now in Matthew Stafford. Arizona is the home team in this matchup, but it's interesting now. I think at the time it could be a lot less interesting.
Yeah, if the Cardinals are just fending off elimination at that point, it's going to be such a late season games. I think you need to find a way to put teams there that, not that you can guarantee anything in the NFL with injuries and everything, but the Cardinals are just such a hit or miss team, and to put them in primetime week 14 and also Thursday night game that's later in the season too, it's just little you gotta think about it. Just I can't get fully behind it. The teams that are 50-50, whether they're gonna be good or bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that Cardinals offense, and not the way it's executed at all times, but just the full on air raid with Kyler Murray is enticing.
It's fun to watch. Though, it's funny. 4 out of the 6 teams in the remaining 3 Monday night games are like very questionable teams. So Minnesota, Chicago, I would say those 2 are kind of questionable. Those I listed them as questionable, but the nice thing about that game is since they're both questionable, and it's week 15, they'll still have 3 games after this to still figure out whether or not they're going to make the playoffs in week 16, 17, and 18. So I'm guessing that week 15 game will be significant in the division, and actually I like that matchup. But then we got Dolphins at Saints. I think the Saints will be a good team. The Dolphins could kind of fall off the trail at this point because it's all up to Tua, and I don't know about Tua. I'm a lot more confident in Sean Payton getting a new quarterback to play well than I am Brian Flores, at least at the quarterback position. I think they're both good coaches, but the quarterback position, I'm a lot more confident in Sean Payton. That's why I say that about the Saints. And then Cleveland at Pittsburgh, week 17, and I don't know, Pittsburgh could be completely out of it by then. So those are the final 3 games for Monday Night Football. What do you think of them?
I think that Pittsburgh-Cleveland game might get flexed. So I think someone else might get put in there.
Did they change the rule? It used to. I feel like I saw something about this. It used to only be that you can flex to Sunday night. You can't flex to Monday. But I did see something this offseason that said it. I just don't know if it was official.
I think it either comes into place this season or next season.
Okay. So let's just roll with the idea that it's not this year then.
Okay.
Because I don't think that they would change it just 1 year randomly. They probably would plan it in advance, I think. Because TV contract didn't expire this year because we knew that they were going to play this year. It's probably next year.
Mm-hmm. But if that's the case, then that Cleveland Steelers game is kind of just a little. Even if the Steelers are like they have to win 1 game and they're in, it's still just so you guys can get curb stomped in the playoffs against the 2 seed, whoever that is. It's
no. It's week 17 though. It's not even week 18. So you
it's the implications are kind of garbage there. The Bears Vikings game, I mean, that would be again the quarterback stuff that we talked about previously. If Kellen Mond's the quarterback and Justin Fields is the quarterback, that's fun. Yeah. Kirk Cousins just isn't doing it for me, man. Just if Kirk Cousins was in that game, like, Kirk, lead him to that 9-8 record, bro.
Yeah, no, they're literally going to be competing for who's 9-8, or maybe 10-7. What about Dolphins Saints? This is a game that I would have much rather seen early in the season. Quarterback question marks? Like, yes, that's fun, but by week 16, I think both teams will have it figured out and it won't be much of a secret anymore. Whether they're good or whether they're bad, we'll know by that point. And I have a feeling you're kind of playing with fire here in what you got.
Yeah, at that point of the season, like, Tua could be completely removed from the lineup and Flores is just like, all right, Brissett's our guy now. We brought him in for a reason. We didn't think that Tua could do it, so put Brissett in. And then you have Jacoby against Jameis, who at that point could either be balling and throwing for 6,000 yards and 80 touchdowns, or Sean Payton's just leaving him out there because he doesn't want to put Taysom Hill out there at quarterback. So that it could either be a phenomenal game or just a terrible one. I still think it could be a great game if Jameis is balling and they bench Tua for Jacoby. I think that could still be a good game. But if there's question marks for both teams when it comes to quarterback play, that's just going to be a recipe for disaster in a primetime slot.
Okay. Sunday Night Football. I'm gonna pull up the week schedules along with the Sunday Night Football schedule. I'll give us the Sunday night schedule, and then I just kind of want to say whether there's a better game that week or not. Okay.
Okay.
Because that's always fun to look at. Because, I mean, you look at some of these and it's like, those could be really questionable by the time they happen. Later in the season, I don't know about that. Geez, some of them are just gross. Okay, week 1 we have Bears Rams. Week 1, if I had to choose games that I would put as the 8 p.m. game over Bears Rams, I would choose Cleveland, Kansas City, Green Bay over in New Orleans, or even Pittsburgh and Buffalo. Andy Dalton is not the thing to sell here. Just really, we're just doing. I think this is another thing where we're just doing this for the grand reopening of these stadiums, where they had them have the primetime game week 1 last year, so they're just doing it again this year.
Yeah, I don't think that that's the game to have to be the Sunday night opener.
Cleveland, Kansas City's a great freaking game.
No, yeah, Cleveland, Kansas City, and Green Bay and Saints. That would be a great one. To what both of those games. Those are the 4 o'clock slots, or 2 of the 4 o'clock slots. Those would be better games to have in that one.
Yeah. Then for week 2, we have Kansas City at Baltimore. I can't say we're gonna much argue with that one. I mean,
that's a great game.
Look at the other games for week 2, but I mean, there's not much saying. The one thing is that if you're gonna have a team share a stadium and the Rams are getting to host Sunday Night Football to open the stadium in LA for them, why did the Chargers not get to host a night game week 2? Week 2, they have the Cowboys coming into town for a 4:25 game. That's probably going to have a pretty good audience, but I mean, it's on CBS and the Titans are playing the Seahawks at the same time, and it's kind of limited who's seeing it. I feel like that's kind of unfair to the Chargers.
Yeah, I agree.
Not even saying that they should be Sunday Night Football, but geez, I mean, the Monday Night Football, as we said earlier, is Detroit Green Bay. Like, what are we doing here?
I think that's just the NFL looking at it and realizing that the LA populace kind of values the Rams over the Chargers. So it might just come down to that.
Yeah. That's too bad. Week 3, decent game, but honestly, I don't even care who the quarterback is for Green Bay. Green Bay at San Francisco, I'm heavily favoring the Niners, and geez, if they don't have their quarterback, then I really don't like that game.
Yeah, I think Bucks at Rams could be a way better game for that, but the Rams already hosted one a couple weeks ago, so I can't really see them chucking them into the Sunday night slot again. But that would be a way better game.
They probably, if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, the Rams probably host the Bucks week 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're probably gonna be like, that's a really weird argument to make. Honestly, the game that pops off the schedule most to me in week 3 that isn't a primetime game already, Saints at Patriots. That's two teams that I am highly interested in. 2 high-level head coaches that kind of are at a point where they both have now in the past 2 years lost their elite level quarterbacks. Where do they go from here? That's like actually a game I would be really excited to watch, but it's a 1 o'clock window, so we're not getting that.
Yeah, no, the storyline for that would be great.
Yeah. Week 4, though, I mean, we get a very similar thing, so maybe they didn't. If they wanted to put this game week 4, I can understand why they weren't willing to do that week 3. Week 4, they have Bucks at Pats, and storyline-wise, I don't think I can get much better. Also, same week we get Jaguars Bengals on Thursday Night Football, and even a decent Monday Night Football. This week has some solid matchups for the primetime games. Kind of the earlier window. Oh boy, the earlier window looks like I'll have some pretty hefty favorites though. But they killed the primetime games for week 4.
Yeah, that's going to have an awesome storyline. It's going to be a storyline that NFL fans have been wanting to see for the past year, seeing Brady go back to the Patriots and the duel between him and Belichick, who's really the top dog and won them Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm. I don't think whenever you get like the opportunity to have an AFC championship rematch, or especially since the Bills and Chiefs haven't changed their teams too much, I don't think many people are going to argue with week 5 being the Sunday Night Football. for the sake of us being Bills fans and not being completely biased, there is one 4 o'clock game that I could get pretty into if the Bills weren't the team that was supposed to be on Sunday Night Football this week. And that game, no, not Giants Cowboys. Cleveland, LA Chargers. That one would be interesting.
That would be a great game too.
I don't. Yeah, you're not going to argue about the Bills, though, are you?
No.
Do you want to argue about the Bills?
Yeah, I want the Bills to have more primetime games. That's what my argument is.
That's to be expected. The other, just because we didn't note this earlier because it wasn't on NFL Network, so it wasn't listed as Thursday Night Football. The other 9:30 a.m. slot for the just trying to put my words together. For the London game is Week 6. The Dolphins are playing the Jaguars Week 6. The Sunday night game for Week 6 is Seahawks Steelers. I have not looked at any other available games yet, but I can tell you, these are two teams that I am not excited to watch this season. So I guarantee that I'm going to be able to find a game here that I would rather watch in the primetime slot.
Yeah, I found one already that I like more than that. Two. I found two.
Yeah, I think I see 3. What are yours?
Okay. Well, my top one would be Kansas City at football team.
Okay. And what's your second?
My second one is Chargers at Ravens.
Okay, so you have 2 the same as me, but honestly, because I know, hear me out here, we know this team is gonna get night games. I would have much preferred, even though it seems ridiculous, I would have much preferred to take away one of the stupid inter-division games that the Cowboys have to play at night, and I would like to watch them play the Patriots on primetime. Honestly, I would rather see that than see them play the Eagles on some night game, because that game really could go like 100 different ways with how those teams could perform, and it leaves a lot of variability to it. Whereas Seahawks Steelers, I mean, there's variability to that, but it's not variability that I'm excited to see. Honestly.
Yeah, that seems like something that's gonna lull me to sleep. That game, depending on how it goes. I mean, it could just be an offensive shootout, or it could just be 2 sputtering motors that can't seem to get going, and it's just whoever is going to be the first one to score wins, because those are going to be the only points of the game.
Absolutely. Week 7. It's this Colts-San Fran matchup. I don't know if I love it, but I think actually for every other game that falls in Week 7, there's no other game that I would put ahead of it. Kansas City plays Tennessee, but that's an inter-conference one. We rarely get to see the Colts play the Niners. I'm cool with this. That one keeps me pretty interested.
Yeah, that's a different kind of matchup. I like that.
Yeah. And then Week 8 we go Cowboys Vikings. I mean, this one once again another matchup where the Cowboys are in, where I actually like this matchup more than a lot of the other stupid night games the Cowboys will get. I don't know why, but I mean, is there anything else that maybe we could argue for? I'm not going to really argue for anything divisional, and it looks like most of the other games are divisional this week, so. Yeah. I'm cool with Cowboys Vikings.
Maybe Patriots Chargers, just to see if the Chargers can get their revenge after New England slapped them across the mouth last season. That would be fun.
I was gonna say that, but I just felt like with how I've reorganized the schedule already, I feel like I've put the Chargers and Patriots into more night games than they had before. So I just wasn't gonna mention them again. That's honestly the only reason I didn't.
Yeah.
Week 9, Tennessee at LA Rams. That's another game that is a game that we're not going to see very often. I really like that game, and I doubt that there's going to be many other options here that I would flip it for.
Yeah, I love AFC, NFC games in prime time, especially later in the season, because that way, no matter who your team is, even if they're not playing, you can watch that and just be like, okay, both these teams are in the playoff race, and if the AFC team beats the NFC team, then like the Bears are in a better spot at the seating, and it gives you something more to watch the game for.
Well, I just love it because like these teams only have to play like at most once every 4 years. So it's like this is a matchup we barely get to see. Give me that. I'd much rather see this than the fact that the Cowboys are going to play the Eagles 8 times over the course of how long we're going to see between a Titans and a Rams matchup. Like, come on. That's exciting to me.
Yeah.
Then Sunday Night Football, really? Kansas City Raiders? I don't know if they can flex at this point, but I don't know. Let's see what else they got for Week 10 because that's not immediately jumping out to me as, oh yeah, that's a great game. What about you? What do you think of it?
Buccaneers football team is the best one this week.
Yeah,
that would be way better.
I could make an argument for Saints Titans as well, but I agree. I don't want to see Kansas City play Las Vegas.
And if I can see a Heineke rematch against Brady, mwah,
yeah,
that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. What the heck? Oh, I was like, no, they're so dumb. Oh my gosh, the NFL website has the Bills Saints matchup listed as Sunday night, even though it's Thursday. I'm like, what is this talking about? No, the actual Week 11 Sunday night game is Steelers at Chargers. I don't know. Once again, I'm questioning the Steelers. The Steelers could be okay. You know, honestly, record-wise, this could be a good matchup, but I don't know if this thing would be close once they actually played it. But record-wise, probably going into the game, it would look like a pretty good matchup.
Yeah. I'm looking for other games here. There's not really much here. I mean, it would be funny if like one of the Cowboys like 10 permitted primetime games was this them playing the Chiefs. It's like, yeah, who's America's team now?
Just beat them. You agree with me though. You'd much rather see the Cowboys play the Chiefs on primetime than the Cowboys play the Eagles again, right?
Yeah, I don't want to see the Cowboys play all of their divisional games in primetime. It's boring.
Yeah, no. Like, if you're gonna force us to watch these NFC East teams, put them against other teams besides other NFC East teams. I guess the only issue with that then is if we don't do any interdivision NFC East primetime games, then the entire schedule has at least an NFC East team in every primetime game, or at least half of them.
It just seems like Fox loves putting
I don't. It's not them though. I don't think it's them.
No, I know it's not. But just the 4:00 games. It seems like every divisional game that the Cowboys play in is either 4:00, Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night. It's one of those. They always play a divisional game.
And
then
the 4:00 game is always America's game of the week. It's not. It's like it's the one that's getting the most viewers.
It's to the Cowboys.
Yeah. Week 12 for Sunday night, we have Cleveland at Baltimore. That's another divisional game that I can actually say that's a better divisional game than most divisional games. And, yeah, I don't think I would argue with it. I don't think I would argue with it at all.
Yeah, there's not much here that you can really say to replace it. Yeah, like, maybe Rams Green Bay, but I'm not even fully there with saying that because that game could turn out to be a dumpster fire depending on who the quarterback is for the Packers.
We're getting a lot of Seahawks in primetime for my liking. 49ers at Seahawks. What are the other options? I have to look first. Jeez. Man, this is a game that should have been thrown in as an early season game. Maybe not. No. No, not the Sunday night game. I'm looking at a different game. Honestly, a division game. You gave Pittsburgh way too many primetime games than I would have. You gave Seattle way too many more primetime games than I would have. Take one of the Seahawks games away and give me Baltimore and Pittsburgh in primetime. Honestly, just because for just the how that series has gone in the past. But the other game that I was talking about here that happens this week that I would have liked to see is like an early season, maybe that week 2 Monday night game instead of something that's going to be as egregious as as freaking what was it, Packers Lions, or one of the 2 other stupid New York Giants games that they're just going to get slaughtered in on Monday Night Football. How about Giants Dolphins? Give that in a primetime slot. Not Sunday night, but I mean, you could throw that in somewhere. That's a game that also I just look at and say that's interesting.
Something that would have worked good earlier in the season and works good now, because the Raiders could be fighting for like a 7 seed at this point in the season. The football team at Raiders would be pretty good too. Both of them, depending on how the Cowboys play in the NFC East, the football team could be fighting for the 7 seed, or they could just be fighting to win the division. And the Raiders are like clinging on to life to get into the playoffs. That would be a good one. But the rest of the games this week, besides the Steelers-Ravens one, just yeah.
I think week 13 is usually the week that they really start being willing to flex games. So it'll really depend on how these teams are looking, but I think even more so probably the week 14 game. That's really where we may start to see some real flexing, because I can see a lot of ways that this game goes strange, and especially with the game that's sitting below it as Bills at Bucks. Yeah, that game could easily get flexed out. Bears Packers or Bills Bucks. I mean, how many people are you really going to have to convince at this point in the season? It's week 14. If the Bills are like 10-2 and the Bucks are 11-1, I mean, are you really going to prefer to watch the I don't even know, 7-5 Packers play the 8-4 Bears? Would you really rather see that? I don't know. Yeah. The only thing is I don't know if they're allowed to take the like national 4:00 game from Fox or CBS. I'm pretty sure they have all priority, but that is the national 4:00 game for CBS, and it's actually the only 4:00 game for CBS as well. So that would be televised across the country.
Yeah, that'd be tough, but that's the best game that week.
Yeah, I think we could see that happen. That one definitely has a lot of potential. I can't believe that Bills Bucks game didn't go to primetime at all, just 4:00. That's wild to me that they just put it in a 4:00 window. And then we like the next 3 weeks are division games when we could have had Bills Bucks like one of these weeks.
Yeah.
Throwing divisional games on Sunday Night Football. I'm probably going to make the argument against all of these. However, I don't know how many, now that it's really late in the season at week 15, 16, 17, 18, I don't know how many outside of division games there necessarily are going to be. For week 15, since we have Saints Bucks, there's a chance that this game isn't as meaningful as they expect it to be. And games I could see go in, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Green Bay, Baltimore, even Seattle, LAR could potentially be interesting. And then there's a bunch of games that are unscheduled too. Las Vegas, Cleveland. I don't know if they would want to flex these games that are potentially just Saturday games for this week or whatever they're considered. But no, yeah, there's a lot of room to wiggle here for week 15, and even though those are 2 teams that may be good, I wouldn't be surprised to see that game get flexed either.
Yeah. There's not a lot of good games here to put in that spot. So I think Saints Buccaneers is kind of the best game that they can. Though Titans, Steelers, Packers, Ravens are close seconds to it. Could give it a run for its money.
Yeah. Now week 16 is just disgusting. I can't. Do you think that game would turn out well? Do you think that game, like at this point in the season, do you really think that would be a exciting game?
No, it's gross and
Washington,
disgusting,
Dallas.
and I hate that the NFC East gets this kind of
treatment,
luxury. Like, I could get it, like a decade ago and before that, when they had 2 or 3 good teams in the division year round. Like every season, 2 or 3 of the teams were good, and it was always a dogfight in that division. And now it's just Every single team is bad. Like the four worst teams in that conference are in that division, and they just keep tossing them on prime time for people to endure, and it's tough.
Yeah.
It's so tough.
Yeah. There's a lot of problems I have with this week 16 area. First thing is that I'll actually give some teams that I've kind of been bashing the whole time, like saying they should be taken off. I'll throw these two teams back into this. I would rather see the Bears play the Seahawks on Sunday Night Football than Washington play Dallas. The game that's even more so upsetting to me to see in this just terrible scheduling, not just time slot for the week it's in, but the week it's in itself too. Why are the Jaguars playing the Jets week 16? Why is this game not occurring week 2 on Monday Night Football when the Packers are playing the Lions? What NFL? Come on. The first thing you should do is go through and schedule all your primetime games and build the rest of the schedule around that. You can do the rest after. But come on. You really... Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, we can't make that an early season primetime game. That's a great time to give these two teams a primetime game. The Jags not going to get a lot of primetime games, and the Jets are New York, so we know they're going to get the primetime games. How is this not a better marketable game than something else that they for sure put in?
Yeah, I don't know how you don't find a way early in the season to get the number 1 and number 2 overall picks to go up against each other. It's really just it's just a showing of incompetence there. Because that game, I would love to watch that game early in the season. At this point, I don't care because they're like going to have like
They're
2
both
wins
gonna be
apiece or
eliminated.
something.
It's not going to matter. It's stupid. They're dumb about it. I don't know. What about the Sunday night game for this is week 16? Are we still talking about Washington Dallas? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like I said, I'd go Bears Seahawks.
Yeah. That seems like the only tolerable game here. I mean, maybe Rams Vikings would be good depending on how the Vikings are at that point in the season. Stafford goes back and bullies an NFC North team, but yeah, that's me stretching it because I don't think that'd be that solid of a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, football team Cowboys. That could. I mean,
Yeah.
anything else? Anything else?
Yeah. Week 17, so not the last week of the season. Games that interest me. Cardinals Cowboys. Raiders Colts. Dolphins Titans even could be interesting depending on how they're falling in seeding wise. Eagles Washington, but I don't want to see in the NFC East anymore. And then there was one more I had. LAR and Baltimore. Every game I just listed there, I listed like 4 games. All interest me more than Minnesota Green Bay.
Yeah, Rams Ravens. That seems like the best game out of all of these. That would be really, really entertaining. I really just because even if Rodgers isn't the quarterback, that game is not going to be fun to watch because it's going to be 2 middle of the road quarterbacks in Jordan Love and Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Just being middle of the road quarterbacks. Maybe Jordan Love breaks out and he's doing great at this point. Still, you're beating up Kirk Cousins at primetime this late in the season. I don't care.
Yeah.
Have 2 explosive offenses go at it.
Then we got week 18. Week 18 is the final week now. Basically, the only thing... there's no week 18 scheduled game because they always flex the one that has the most importance to the last game no matter what. But games I'll point out that could be influential. The two that I really want to point out are Chargers Raiders and Bears Vikings. Those are the 2 week 18 games that if I had to put my money on having a big impact, I would say those 2. Maybe Seahawks Cardinals, but that would only be to figure out who the 7th seed is, and I think those 2 teams are the worst of the teams in the NFC West.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Although we could have the Niners. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm jumping back on myself. We could have the Niners play the Rams just to straight up see who wins the division. Yeah, that could just be to see who wins the division. Not say both of them are going to make the playoffs, but just to see who wins the division and gets home field advantage for a longer period of time.
Two different games. I'm gonna pick two different ones. I think Steelers at Ravens, that could have implications on who gets for the Steelers it'd be them getting into the playoffs. And then Patriots Dolphins, that could be who gets into the playoffs then between
That's
those two
true.
teams, because they could be really like close net end of the season. Patriots Dolphins, two of Mac Jones, who gets into the playoffs. That could be a really good game.
Yeah. No, these are exciting. And now the one last thing I want to check now that I said it, do the Jaguars have any primetime games? I don't remember mentioning the Jaguars in primetime at all.
They have a London game.
1 p.m. Okay, they have the Cincinnati game. I forgot about the Cincinnati game, week 4. So they did give them one. I just had to make sure because I felt really bad for the Jaguars. And the Texans, I know the Texans had one. I just can't remember who the Texans was either. So I'll just
Panthers, right?
Texans Panthers. That was early in the season as well,
I
right?
think that's a Thursday night game, week 3.
Uh Thursday night game week 3. Yep, you're right. So, that's basically it. That's everything for the schedule. I think we hit on basically everything. I mean, we touched on a little bit of all the schedule, so I don't think there was too much we could have missed. Decent length here for talking about just games.
Yeah. Well, that's what you get. Special episodes with us, baby.
We don't sell you short.
No, we just take it. We just take it long and easy.
Okay. You all set?
Yeah, I think we could cut it here.